Hey guys, you might have seen in the news here recently about LeBron James borrowing $300 million. Let me ask you a question. If you were worth $1 billion, why would you borrow $300 million? Think about that. LeBron James has made hundreds of millions of dollars playing basketball. He has endorsement deals, businesses, investments, a lifetime relationship with Nike, and yet, according to recent reporting, a company controlled by LeBron borrowed almost $300 million from life insurance companies. Why? So, again, why would he do that? And maybe even a better question is, what does somebody like LeBron understand about money? What does somebody like LeBron understand about money that most of us were never even taught? That's what I want to talk about today, because there's a financial principle buried inside this story that I do think everybody should understand. So first, let's get the story right. I've seen versions of the story that make it sound like LeBron borrowed $300 million from his life insurance policy. That is not what happened. And that distinction mattered. LeBron reportedly had a company called King James Funding, LLC. That company issued nearly $300 million in long-term bonds. And who bought those bonds? Two life insurance companies. So LeBron didn't borrow $300 million from a life insurance policy. He essentially borrowed $300 million from the life insurance company themselves, company capital. They're very different things, right? So here's where the story gets real interesting. The debt was reportedly backed by future streams of LeBron's non-basketball income, including income connected to things like his lifetime relationship with Nike. In other words, he had something extremely valuable, future cash flow. And instead of waiting decades to collect all of that money, he found a way to turn some of that future income into capital today. So let's simplify it. Imagine somebody tells you, I'm going to pay you $1 million a year for the next 30 years. That's obviously valuable. But there's a problem. You don't have 30 million today. You have a promise of future cash flow. So what if a financial institution looked at that contract and said, we believe those payments are reliable. We'll give you a large amount of money today, and we'll use that future income stream to support the debt. Now you've converted future income into present day. That's essentially the financial concept that we're talking about. And this is where I want you to pay attention. The lesson isn't how can I do exactly what LeBron did. Most of us don't have a lifetime Nike contract just sitting around. The lesson is wealthy people think differently about assets and liquidity. Most people think money works like this. You earn money, you save money, you invest money, and eventually when you need money, you sell something. You sell the stock, you withdraw from a 401k, you liquidate the investment, you take money out of the account. That's how most of us were taught. But sophisticated wealth strategies frequently ask a completely different question. Can I access that capital without giving up the asset to produce the value? That's a very different mindset. LeBron had a valuable economic asset, future income. Instead of waiting for every future dollar to arrive, he borrowed against the value of that future income. Now let's talk about the insurance companies. So another part of this story nobody seems to be talking about is, where did the insurance companies get the money? Think about what an insurance company does. Billions of people send life insurance companies premiums. Those companies don't simply put all of that money in a giant vault. They invest enormous amounts of it. Why? Because insurance companies may make promises today that they won't have to fulfill for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So they're looking for assets capable of supporting those long-term obligations. That can include government bonds, corporate bonds, mortgages, real estate-related debt, and private credit. And apparently, bonds backed by LeBron James future income. The original bonds that we're talking about here were reportedly issued at approximately 4.8%, and they don't mature until 2049. The insurance company gets a long-term asset. LeBron gets liquidity. That's not charity. It's not a loophole. It's finance. Now, here's the connection to life insurance. I want to be extremely careful here because I don't want anybody clipping 15 seconds of this video and saying, Glenn said LeBron borrowed $300 million from an IUL. I did not say that. He did not do that. But there is a financial principle here that also helps explain why properly designed permanent life insurance can be interesting. That principle is access versus liquidation. Let's say you've accumulated cash value inside of a properly structured life insurance policy. And depending on the policy and its terms, you might be able to access liquidity through a policy loan. You're borrowing the insurance company's money using the policy's value as collateral. That's fundamentally different from simply withdrawing money and spending down the account. Policy loans aren't free money. They charge interest. They have to be managed. An outstanding loan reduces policy values and the death benefit and can create serious tax consequences if the policy lapses with a loan outstanding. So this needs to be structured and monitored correctly. But the concept is worth understanding. So here's the question I want you to start asking. Instead of always asking, how much money do I have? Start asking, how much of my money can I actually access? Because those are different. Those aren't necessarily the same question. So let's say you've got $500,000 in a retirement account, $300,000 of equity in real estate, and $100,000 of investments. Maybe you look at your statements and you say, I'm worth $900,000. That's great. But tomorrow morning, you need $100,000. Where does that come from? Do you sell investments? Do you create taxable event? Do you take a retirement distribution? Do you sell some of the real estate? Do you borrow? What are the consequences of each one of those questions and decisions? That's what financial strategy is really all about. It's not simply how big is the number, it's how much control do I have over that number. And there's another piece, taxes. Generally speaking, borrowed money isn't treated as taxable income when you receive it. Why? Because it's not income in the traditional sense. You've received an asset, the cash, but you also created an obligation, the debt. That doesn't mean borrowing magically eliminates taxes. It doesn't. The underlying income can still have tax consequences, interest costs, structure matters, tax law matters, but there's one reason borrowing can be such an important tool in sophisticated financial planning. Here's 3 questions. When you're evaluating your retirement strategy, investments, savings, or insurance, I want you to ask 3 questions. Is my money growing? Hey, thanks for joining. We're talking about why LeBron, a billionaire, would borrow $300 million. So again, there's 3 questions I want you to ask. Is my money growing? How easily can I access it? And what happens when I access it? Are there taxes? Are there penalties? What market consequences might there be? Tell me about interest. Interest owed, interest paid, interest earned. And do I have to sell an asset? Does accessing the money interfere with my long-term strategy? Those questions matter. The bigger lesson from LeBron, forget about the $300 million for a minute. Forget basketball, forget Nike. Here's the lesson that I want you to remember. An asset isn't valuable only because you can sell it. Sometimes an asset is valuable because you can leverage it. And that's a completely different way of thinking about wealth. LeBron had future economic value. Financial institutions recognized that value. They were willing to lend against it, and LeBron gained access to capital today without simply waiting decades for all of that future income to arrive. That's sophisticated financial engineering. Most families aren't going to issue a $300 million private bond, but we can learn from the principles. Liquidity matters, access matters, taxes matter, control matters, and how your assets interact with each other matters. So that's why I tell people, don't just collect financial products, build a financial strategy. Your 401k has a job. Your investments have a job. Your emergency fund has a job. Your insurance should have a job. Your retirement income strategy has a job. And when they're designed properly, all of those pieces, they should work together. That's the difference between owning a bunch of financial stuff and actually having a financial strategy. So here's the question I want to leave with you. If you needed $100,000 tomorrow, where would it come from? And more importantly, what would accessing that $100,000 cost you? If you don't immediately know the answer, it's probably a conversation worth having. Again, I'm Glenn Hall. I want to be your financial strategist. Hey, Advantage Financial Alliance, we believe in three things: integrity, leadership, and transparency. And my goal isn't simply to help you get more money. It's to help you understand how your money actually works. Hey, drop info in the chat or DM me for more information or to schedule some time to get this conversation started.